Hi everyone, how you doing? This is John Bernard from B.A.C.E Foundation. Hope you're well. Here at B.A.C.E Foundation, we're focused on pushing you towards a journey of self-discovery so you can unravel the potential inside you and therefore create the right habits that enable you to live a purposeful life and leave the right legacy. Well, welcome back to another episode of The Fact That It's Wednesday. We are back again for your weekly dose of not medication but motivation. This week, the fact that it's Wednesday should encourage you to build your self-control. Let's go. There was a study that was conducted by a clinical psychologist called Walter Mischel, and the experiment was called the marshmallow experiment. And what Walter Mischel was trying to look at was the ramifications of delayed gratification. And so what he did was he placed 3 to 5 year olds in a room, and he gave each one of them a plate of marshmallows, and he told them that each one of them had to wait for 10 minutes before eating eating a marshmallow. And if they did that, then it would be rewarded with 2 marshmallows rather than just the one. He found out that the ability to wait was predictive to how that particular child was going to do in the future in terms of their success in life and school. They followed these kids till when they were 40, and what they ended up finding out was, yes, it was true. The kids who were willing to delay their gratification ended up doing better in their SAT scores, ended up having better social skills. They ended up, dealing with stress differently, and overall, they just ended up doing better in life. Using this study, we can see that there is a correlation between, having self-control or delaying gratification and how well you would do later on in life. So we're going to look at how we can build our self-control and what tools we can use to delay gratification. Now, Michelle found out that the children who are willing to delay gratification and wait for the second marshmallow, right, they were able to view the marshmallow differently. So they viewed it as, using their imagination, they viewed it as an inedible object. Instead of staring down at the marshmallow, they viewed it as something completely different, right? And that helped them to sort of deal with the throbbing temptations of wanting to grab a hold of that marshmallow and eat it. Sometimes we want things here and now, and we're not willing to wait for the process. We're not willing to wait for the correct timing, and by doing that, it kind of hinders the full spectrum of that blessing when it arises. We always remember the marshmallow test when you're thinking and contemplating about, is this really worth it? So really coming out of yourself and viewing that thing differently, changing your perspective on it, and weighing up the consequences. If I do this, what am I gaining? And if I don't do this, what am I missing out on, right? And when you start to weigh up the advantage, the pros and cons, and you can kind of say, okay, make the right choice of saying, you know what, yes, I'm going to do this. Or no, it's not worth it because I know that if I do this is going to hinder this later on. Focusing on the consequences of your choices allows you to have a better perspective on that situation, and it enables you to make the right choice in which direction you should take. If your target is going to university, right, there's certain things that you prioritize. For example, getting the right grades, making it to every class, right, asking for help in a subject that you're struggling in, right? So if something kind of steps in that's not in line with your overall target, right, and you know that, for example, there's a big party that everyone's going to the day before your exams, right? Yes, the first instinctual thing would be like, yes, I'm there, this is great, right? But then you kind of have to look at it differently by changing your perspective, by thinking, okay, if I do go there, I've got an exam tomorrow, how is this going to make sense? Now, don't believe the lie, right? No one's born with self-control. Practice it. If you know you've got an exam tomorrow and there's a big party today, right, it's about you kind of prioritizing and ensuring that you're looking at that situation with full insight. Okay, if I do go to this party today, what are the consequences for me tomorrow, right? And it's really starting with this small thing like the marshmallow test, really small little steps towards building your self-control, like saying no to, maybe you're trying to stay away from sweets, saying no to somebody offering you a Haribo. Maybe it's you want to start working out and training, so yes, when the alarm clock goes off and you feel like you want to sleep, continue sleeping, right, you turn it off. You wake up, you turn it off, and you go do what you need to do, right? And these small things lead up to bigger things, like like dealing with peer pressure. It leads up to bigger things like saying no to drugs. It leads up to bigger things like saying no to things that you know will be detrimental to your health, right? But it all starts with small steps that take you to that point where you are able to say no. You know yourself that well, you're able to say no to anything that is not coinciding with where you want to go. Now, everyone has an area of weakness, and you should never look at your friend and think, oh, if they can do that, I can do the same, right? Because you might not be able to handle that situation in that way, right? So one thing that I always say is there's an importance of really understanding your area of weakness, right? Really understanding what area you struggle in, right? What area is hard for you to say no in. If it's a party, if it's drugs, if it's you know, if it's anger, if it's, you know, whatever it is, you should be able to know that thing. And what you need to do when you know that thing, I want you to write that thing down, right? And I want you to start dealing with that thing. Right now, you need to get to the point where, you know, you're feeling yourself with knowledge and information about how to deal with that particular thing, right? You know, so you equip yourself. So when that thing actually arises, right, you're able to deal with it a certain way. What happens is when you fail to deal with your weakness, right, it will always sneak up on you, right? Whether you like it or not. Now, you might have forgotten about it, but it hasn't forgotten you, right? So it's always important to really recognize your area of weakness. Start taking the right steps towards building your self-control in that particular area. Now, for example, when I was growing up, when I was young, my area of weakness was anger. And to happen was when a situation arose where my anger was sparked, right, I would act impulsively without thinking, right? And that was a dangerous place to put myself because, you know, anything could have happened, you know, to myself or to other people. So, but growing up, I started really dealing with that situation, dealing with anger and looking inwardly and really thinking, okay, you know, what am I angry about? You know, how can I deal with these things? Really dealing with that root of that anger, not the leaves, not the branches, going deep down and dealing with the root. That's one of the way. And another fantastic way is once you recognize your area of weakness, is to avoid situations that will place you in a vulnerable situation, right? It's really simple. It's hard, but again, it's really weighing the pros and the cons and thinking to yourself, if I place myself in this vulnerable situation, right, I know that I might not be able to say no when I'm asked to do this, right? So therefore, right, I'm going to say no to even getting to that point. Right, and these are the things that you need to do. That's why I always say there's an importance of knowing where you're going, right? So because when you know where you're going, you know where not to go, you know where not to place yourself, and you know definitely not to put yourself in a vulnerable situation. What I want you to do is I want you to sit down with a paper and pen and start jotting down the area or the areas that you believe that you're weak in, right? Now, if these areas have hindered you heavily in progressing and moving forward, right, and they can be physically removed, then remove them, right? You know, summon the courage, just remove them. Weigh up the pros and cons. Think about, okay, if I allow this thing to continue to hold me down, right, what's going to happen the next year and the year after that? If I continue to allow this thing to ensnare me, right, what's going to happen? Is it going to help me? Is it going to be beneficial? And if it's not, then start cutting off the root right away, right? Start dealing with the root today, okay? And I want you to realize that we all fall, and building our self-control really is like learning how to roller skate. Yes, we may fall so many times, right, before we learn to balance ourselves. Take heart, take courage, you know, start researching about the area of weakness that you have and start dealing with the root right now. When you're able to build your self-control and you're able to say no and delay gratification, it will help you so much later on in life, right? But what we fail to do sometimes is we don't start early, we start late, you know, when it comes to these things. So I want you guys to start really early. I want you guys to start now. Start saying no to things that are against your value system. You know, start putting yourself on a driver's seat and not allowing people just to take away with you and to take you left and right, right? You have your own vision, you have your own place to go. Now is the time where you really start building your self-control, delaying gratification, because you know that where you're going, there's certain things that you don't need to have on you. Now, if that baggage involves people, bad relationships, or whatever it is, friends, then it might be that cut-off point, right? It might be deadline day, right? So it's about time for you to sit down and really think about what's conducive to where I'm going and what's not, right? And then start building from there and say, you know what, if this is not, I need to say no to this. Yeah, it's hard, but I need to say no to this because I know the outcome. Fantastic, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. I wish you a great week, and hopefully I'll see you next week.